This tale takes place when Christmas was still young, when Santa's beard was brown, before he'd found the one. 'Twas the eve of Christmas. Saint Nick had his list. Good children would get toys and whatever they wished. The South Pole was also ready. Krampus prepared his tome. Naughty children would get captured and made to butler his home. Oh, you've never heard of Krampus? Well, you've come to the right story. You see, Krampus was once a worker elf, someone who managed Christmas inventory. But ambitious little Krampus saw some improvements to be made, for the children of Christmas weren't always behaved. So in the South Pole, he built a mansion colossal, where naughty children could be reformed, where they'd learn to be docile. He'd spend all year training, correcting and direct, then once children learned this, he'd send them home perfect. Now surely with kids missing, parents ought to panic, but old Krampus was clever, he left puppets mechanic. The parents were none the wiser, and in a year what returned was a child well behaved, something they'd certainly earned.
This year has gone splendid, and you all have been bettered,
Krampus announced to his children of last year's naughties fettered. He'd prepare to return them home, now that they'd been taught that being bad wasn't worth it, and what being good could have brought.
You missed one of your chores,
said Krampus to a child.
I guess you volunteered as Christmas assistant,
he smiled. The child frowned.
It's too cold, I don't want to go.
Wear a coat, said Krampus. We don't stop for snow.
The sleigh was prepared, and Krampus spoke as he sat down.
'Tis the night of punish,
echoed as Caribou flew over town. His assistant recited pages of misbehaved youth, the ones Krampus wanted, the bullies and uncouth. First they'd get Timmy, snatch him right from his bed, for he was naughty this year, having hit siblings on the head. Then they'd sneak out Violet in a couple of shackle. She too was naughty, insulted her friends with a cackle. Now Krampus was always fair, and everyone knew his ways, but most were not aware his punishments gave Santa all the praise.
He barely does anything,
said Krampus on his sleigh, watching from afar as Santa dropped presents, ate cookies, and played.
The children behave because of me,
Krampus grumbled.
If I didn't take them and teach them manners, they'd never be humbled.
His assistant argued.
I was humble before your teaching.
To which Krampus laughed.
Yet all you did was screeching.
The night dragged into morning, and all the children were paid. Whether they got presents or punishment was their choices made. Krampus returned those reformed and gathered new transgressors. It'd be a new year, new teachings, new measures. But while morning came and good children rushed from bed, as every Christmas went, Santa invited all to Homestead to spend the day celebrating the cheer they had spread. This time was special. Krampus brought a present. One he'd heard Gingerbread say she'd love and was certain would make her think him pleasant. Gingerbread was a baker elf, a sweetie indeed. She made cookies, candies, and everything elves need. Krampus dressed just for her, his hair done up and styled. A look, he was assured, would drive the maiden wild. He admired Ginger's charm and longed for many season, but could never convince himself to approach her for some reason. But this year was different. He'd finally make a move. With gift in hand and behaved children in tow, she'd surely approve.
A gift for me?
Said Ginger with surprise. Krampus had never seen such beauty in one's eyes.
Of course it's for you,
said Krampus with a smile.
It's something I've heard you wanted for a while.
Before she could open it, Santa's voice was a boom.
I'd like to make announcements before we resume. To all the elves of the north, your work's been fantastic. This Christmas was our best yet. Records have been bombastic. The toys have been great, and pastries good too. I'd like to thank each of you for all that you do. Now as for the south,
Santa cleared his tone.
I think we might consider what we allow and condone. Krampus is too strict on kids, a bully, authoritative. Might we think of a way to make his process more innovative?
The elves went quiet, and Krampus curved his lip.
Sometimes children are stubborn,
he said in a snip. Santa rebutted with sour in his voice.
Offer them gifts, and let us see their choice.
Krampus got mad, but instead bit cheek. Santa couldn't understand, he only wanted to critique.
Everyone from the North and South Poles are required,
Gingerbread said from afar, her expression inspired.
Of course!
Said Santa with joy and excite.
Time to thank all involved for our successful night.
For each group he praised, they'd blush, clap and giggle, while Santa gave big laughs, causing his belly to jiggle. Now Santa had taken his time to bless all, and Krampus was real patient, what felt like a crawl. But no praise for Krampus, no thank you, no applause.
Now, just one last thing,
said that old Santa Claus. Krampus held his breath, his chest puffing out, certain this one was for him. There was no doubt.
Gingerbread, I've admired your talents since we met, and as much as I've tried, your beauty I can't forget.
Santa knelt down, and Krampus's insides cringed. If he was going to see this happen, he knew he'd unhinge. A ring box opened, and Santa flashed his pearls.
You're the most wonderful I've met of all the elf girls.
Krampus couldn't bear it, couldn't watch it, had to leave. He crumpled the present and stormed out that Christmas Eve. He stomped through the snow with a furrow and a groan, his children scurrying behind, seeming scared of his tone.
Darn that old Nick. They're engaged. What now? Everything I plan he manages to ruin somehow.
Krampus howled and seethed, his claws curling in. He hated them for not seeing how much they needed him.
I won't be told off for my contribution to Christmas. I swear it. I promise it.
He shouted in grimace.
They say I'm excessive, too organized. Well, fine, I'll go mad. They'll all be surprised.
Krampus snatched a notepad, and an assistant too. He started hatching a scheme, a plan, something new. He'd take groups of children, same as every year, but this time he'd leave the naughties and only kidnap the cheer. One step further, he'd spend all year not retraining, but instead teaching good kids to be entertaining. Slugs in books and toothpaste in cookies, he'd even show them how to pick their own boogies. Mousetraps on stairs and washers full of bugs, he'd also teach them to stop giving hugs. An entire year to unlearn every good thing they were taught. It'd be easy to teach them that good was bad, and bad was not. Krampus gathered the kids and made it real clear.
Only fun things will get you free from doing chores here. So invent some new pranks and play one or two. Otherwise you're scrubbing, cleaning, or cooking a stew.
One child shouted,
Good kids don't do that.
Which is why we're all boring,
said Krampus in spat.
So let's learn some fun, then others will know that we're worth some credit, some attention, gusto.
It didn't take long, a punishment or less, for the children to realize good behavior meant consequences and bad behavior meant success. The mansion went mental, the children were crazy, everything was chaos, madness or lazy. Dishes didn't get cleaned except with fingers or tongues, and the noise level was unbearable once several got drums. Krampus smirked big watching the disaster he created. Surely this meant he was less authoritative when calculated. Then a knock at the door, which Krampus did open, to see Gingerbread standing, but no words were spoken. She opened her mouth, and the kids were too loud. Even when Krampus leant in, her voice was a shroud. So he gave a good yell,
Come right inside!
And as she walked in, the kids' pranks were supplied. She stepped on false floor and slipped on a shoe. She even fell for that old handshake glue. Her hair got gummed and jokes flung that were shrewd. She gasped in amazement.
These kids are so rude.
Krampus straightened his back and gave a good laugh.
You think it's funny?
Said Ginger.
All this riffraff?
With a scowl and a huff, Krampus' stature shrunk down.
I'm too disciplined, remember? I'm learning to clown.
No one said that. You're fun, and let me add.
But before she could finish, ran up a young lad. It was the last straw for Ginger when the boy gave her tea, and instead was worm soup. That's about when she'd flee. With her exit so swift, Krampus couldn't say goodbye, and something inside him started to untie. He shut the front door and grabbed at his head.
What am I doing?
He shouted.
She thinks I'm stupid.
Little Sarah walked up and took Krampus' paws.
Don't forget she's engaged to that old Santa Claus.
You're right, I need strength, said Krampus with zest. Let's get back to training and continue our quest.
Next Christmas Eve came, and Krampus did remember all the promises he'd made to the kids last December. He'd march them all north and they'd have some fun, messing with Santa's workshop so they'd get nothing done. They hid screws and wrenches and even laced shoes. Krampus's favourite was when he filled the toy line with ooze. They pretended to help, but it was all fake. They even caused the bakery to blow up a cake. After a long day of pranks and fun and amuse, Krampus sent his kids home, staying behind to defuse. But while his head high as he traversed a hall, he overheard something that made him feel small. Santa was mourning, his factory a mess. He didn't understand why, couldn't fathom a guess. Krampus' heart sunk, he felt pain real bad. He couldn't understand.
Why isn't he glad?
Krampus was wrong for being strict, so wasn't chaos good? But then why was Santa sad? Krampus must have misunderstood. So he dragged his way home through the muddy snow, hoping his kids could cheer him up, maybe a prank to return his glow. But back at his mansion, kids too were weeping. Tummy aches, tantrums, and all of them not sleeping.
I hate this gross house,
Cried one through a sniff, while others hyped on sugar were causing a tiff. Krampus' heart sunk further, deeper, at feet. He tried to make them happy, but instead found defeat. Then something worse happened, something awful I'll say. An elf came shouting, careening on sleigh.
The workshop is burning.
The elf shouted manic.
Come with me quick, the fire's gigantic.
Krampus went with, and they arrived soon to see the workshop engulfed in a fire typhoon. Elves were shrieking and running, everything in disarray, so Krampus tried to help, pulling out a water spray. They worked all night and eventually put it out, and with the fire gone, in joy they did shout. But after a moment of looking, most began to pout.
I can't believe this happened.
Gingerbread grieved.
All the toys have been burnt. A year's work unachieved.
The elves wandered ashes and cleaned out debris, arguing why it all happened. They couldn't agree. But one thing was clear, Christmas wouldn't arrive. No kids would get presents. All would be deprived. After a moment of silence, then one gave a bark.
The toy line gear's stuck. That's how fires spark.
With Santa's big hand, he felt through the gears and pulled out something that confirmed Krampus's fears. A handful of ooze was raised to the sky. Then Santa shouted,
Who did this? Don't lie.
Krampus' stomach knotted, twisted and churned. He realized it was his fault that the workshop had burned. The crowd was quiet and sullen, afraid, knowing now this had happened because of a prank someone played. Now it would have been easy to just not speak up, but Krampus was still disciplined. It was how he set up.
It's my fault,
He whispered, his heart beating quick.
I was trying to be fun, learn to be like Saint Nick.
The elves all gasped and murmured with eyes wet, and Krampus lowered his head with stomach full of regret.
Does this look like fun?
Said Santa, real annoyed.
Spending all day messing around and getting Christmas destroyed?
The elves were all whispers and talking a bit. Something about toys ruined and that Krampus should quit.
I'm sorry,
said Krampus.
I guess it would seem that I am too excessive, unworthy, obscene.
He skulked from the group and heard jeers from the crowd.
I can't believe it was Krampus.
He used to make me so proud.
He made his way home, head down all the way. It was a big mistake thinking he was allowed to play. For structure was his life, and he should have known that. Being the responsible disciplinary was all he was good at. That night, Krampus sat in his study, wanting to cry. He hated himself for having let everything gone so awry. He'd never have fun, never laugh, not again. His place was to be serious, wear a suit, use a pen. Just as a tear had rolled down his cheek, an open door did his interest pique. Several small faces peeped in to say,
I want an apple.
I need a bath.
I miss ballet.
Krampus grumbled, stood, and straightened his suit.
Get your uniforms on. I'll hear no dispute.
The children jolted upright and gave Krampus a stare.
I said march, he shouted. Straight to room with clothes wear.
But all our clothes are dirty.
Said one child with frown.
And the washers are full of bugs. All dirt.
Stained brown.
Then you'll clean it, take baths, and we'll snack right after. Then you'll practice your ballet and dust up the rafter.
Fold my shirts.
Read a book.
Then brush my hair.
To which Krampus sighed.
Chores don't make you despair?
No, not at all.
We're sick of playing pranks and having no friends.
Krampus rubbed his chin. This was a new means to the same ends. In that moment there was a spark, a new thought. Discipline was the foundation that allowed fun to be brought.
You want apples, baths, clean clothes, and scheduled dance?
Krampus laughed.
Are you sure this isn't an elaborate prank just by chance?
Please,
Mr.
Mr. Krampus.
Said 3 with sad face.
Brushed teeth.
Washed hair. And a cleaned up space.
The kids were rebelling, but not for more jokes. They wanted some structure. This surely was hoax. So he started to laugh, and the children did too, and together they realized what they ought to value.
Then let us get started,
said Krampus,
and quick. This house is a mess. We'll clean it up slick.
Krampus was amazed. He hadn't even begun rules, and the kids were already running to grab cleaning tools. The children felt accomplished, happier. Who would have guessed? All this structure and order was making them less stressed. No more tears or tantrums or tummy aches either, and what's extra, all this order gave Krampus a breather. Though a weight on his mind, the toys for Christmas still ashed, but a fated knock on the door would change that real fast. In the doorway stood Ginger with a plate full of confection, soldiers, firefighters, trucks, dolls, and other selection. An idea sparked in Krampus, something he knew was long shot. But anything was worth a try to save Christmas, he thought.
Can you teach kids to make those?
Said Krampus without greet, to which Ginger stammered.
Maybe, I guess, but not if they cheat.
Excellent,
said Krampus, as he had her follow, to the kitchen where children waited perfectly in row.
Are these the same kids?
Asked Ginger, surprised.
They are, don't forget, in discipline I'm specialized.
The children all giggled, they were in on the joke, but Ginger just puzzled, and then Krampus spoke.
They can save Christmas if you teach them to bake. We'll deliver toys made of cookie before anyone awake.
That'd take quite a while,
said Ginger in worry.
Please give us a chance,
said the kids.
And hurry!
So Gingerbread did teach them how to mix a batch of the most delicious cookies and make shapes from scratch. Krampus supervised and managed the oven where he placed cookies in and took out by the dozen. He knew this could save Christmas. It was a token, not the best, but it'd give every child something to open when they awoke from their rest. While cookies baked, filling the kitchen with yummy scent, Krampus went to Gingerbread to have just a moment.
I know I rushed this, and I don't mean to be rude, but also, why did you come over, if I might intrude?
After what happened,
said Ginger,
I thought you'd be hurt. I figured you need help, a shoulder to cry on, or at least some dessert.
You're very sweet and thoughtful, but that's too polite.
Ginger grinned.
Why? With whom else would I spend Christmas night?
With whom you're engaged. Santa.
Krampus grumbled, to which Ginger's expression entirely crumbled.
Engaged? No way!
Said Ginger with a start.
Weren't you there? Didn't you see? I told him someone already has my heart.
Krampus' paws went all clammy and sweaty and ew. There's no way, no how, this couldn't be true. But then he saw dangling, right from her ear, something he'd planned to gift her that last Christmas year. 2 earrings of snowflakes, they glistened so bright, and then Ginger said,
These were your gift for me, right?
Krampus' heart swelled, and he smiled real wide. His fangs showed, his chest puffed, he felt some deep pride.
They were, they are, and another thing too. There's something I've always wanted to ask you.
Ginger turned red, and she blushed, must have known, that Krampus was going to ask.
I'd like you to become my own.
Ginger said,
Yes.
and Krampus blushed too. Then all the kids started to go,
Ooh.
Krampus hugged Ginger and gave her a kiss.
I think this goes down as my favourite Christmas.
Then as cookies baked, Krampus went to the elves with pleas, having them fly cookies to homes, having them set under trees. Soon enough, Santa heard and joined in on the fun.
If it's a shot to save Christmas, I'm in for this run.
It took them all night and all of their spice, but with Krampus directing, everything went precisely precise. With Christmas morning here, all the South Pole kids were dozed, so Krampus sent them all to bed, in exact order, composed.
I can't believe this worked,
Said Santa in wonder.
It was Krampus's idea.
Said Ginger.
He wouldn't let Christmas go under.
Krampus took a deep breath and faced his worst fears.
I'm sorry about your workshop and oozing the gears, but I'll help you rebuild it no matter the cost. I'll stay up all night, work until I'm exhausted.
I too owe an apology.
Said Santa, hat in hand.
Your skills are necessary, and my attitude just wasn't grand.
Krampus smiled, Santa nodded, and they both seemed at ease. They had learned that Christmas didn't work without each other's expertise.
As for the workshop,
Said Santa,
all help will be accepted. Don't feel too bad, this whole thing was good fate intercepted. You see, during my flight with your cookies some fell, and on landing I saw the most beautiful belle. She was kind with red hair and eyes that gave me pause. We have a date next week. I tell you, Krampus, she'll become my Mrs. Claus.
Everyone laughed and spent all day chatting as joy raised to the air. Friendships had mended, attitudes had shifted, and all had been repair. Since that fateful day, the North and South Poles got along. No arguing over presents nor punishments, no reason to be headstrong. And as for our hero Krampus, he learned his place for sure, that he was the teacher of taking care, learning manners, and being mature.
I won't be told off for my contribution. Okay. I won't be told off.
Try again.
You're the most wonderful of all the elf girls. I hate that.
With Christmas morning here, all the South Park, oh for fuck's sake.
Your work's been fantastic! The best Christmas... Oh...
This time was special. Krampus brought a present, one he'd heard Gingerbread say she'd love, and was certain would make him think it'd make her think that the critical error.
Might we think of a way to make his process more innovative? The elves went quiet, and Krampus curved his lip. Sometimes children are stubborn, he said in a snip.
He shunt the front door. Just booted it off its f***ing hinges. F*** this door, we don't need them anymore. But while morning came and good children rushed from bed, as every Christmas went, Santa can't say Santa all of a sudden. It's a Christmas story and I can't say Santa. This is going well. An elf dashed into office with concern in tone.
To repair the workshop, we'd need a big loan.
Don't worry, young lad. Santa's resourceful, you see. An advertising deal for cola will get gifts under tree.
Santa rose with a smile and pulled from his desk a new outfit in red.
I think it makes me look statuesque.